My little wall of books. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing a dedicated book video. We're going to go over all of the books I read in 2023. This is not all of them. Some of them I do not have physical copies of, but I'm really excited. If you've been following me for a while, you know I do make book videos here and there, but I mostly do fitness content. I am an online personal trainer, nutrition coach. Fitness is my passion, but reading is more of a recent newfound passion. I've always loved reading, but I started reading self-help books first in adulthood at about 18. Really loved self-help books. And then end of 2021, I started getting more into fiction. I am a high-stress individual. I put a lot of pressure on myself in a lot of things. And I was talking to my husband, and he told me in a positive, loving way that I needed to get a hobby that was just for fun. A hobby I did not put any pressure on. And then my passion for reading all sorts of books, including fiction, was born. So 2022 was my first full year I'd consider myself a reader, a book girly. Here we are, end of 2023. I definitely read more books this year than I did last year because now I'm all into the Goodreads, tracking them, rating them. It's been so great. I read 33 books this year, maybe give or take a couple because I feel like sometimes I forget to rate them. But we're gonna go through all of them. We've got romance, thriller, self-help because I still love it, all sorts of stuff. One last thing too I'll say about why I love reading so much. It's like living multiple lives in my one life. It's a form of travel for me. I love to travel and I'm just obsessed, okay? So if you're not a reader currently, maybe give it a try. Who knows? You might find something you're extremely passionate about. I'm gonna link my Goodreads down below in case you want to follow along there. So we're gonna go through every book I read from top to bottom, and I'm gonna give you a rating on each. So let's get into it. First book I read in 2023 was Confess by Colleen Hoover. I have read lots of Colleen Hoover books. It Ends With Us, Ugly Love, Verity, lots of Colleen Hoover books. I know she can be kind of polarizing. I think girls either love her or hate her. I will say that it was a great introduction into reading. I've liked a lot of her books, but by the time I read Confess, I'd read several other books in 2022, and what I will say about Colleen Hoover books is that they seem to have a more juvenile feel to them. To this day, if another Colleen Hoover book comes up, I would possibly read it, but because I've read so many other books now, I just feel like my taste has changed a little bit. I rated all my Colleen Hoover books 5 stars, but at this point, I don't know. Confess was not my favorite Colleen Hoover book. I don't know what I rated on Goodreads, which a lot of my ratings for these books might be different than they are on Goodreads. Because I feel like my reading taste is evolving. I'd rate Confess maybe a 3 star. So I struggle to give summaries of books because I love to go into books kind of blind. So I'm just going to give you something brief. But this girl moves to Texas. Her life is a little bit of a mess. She desperately needs a job, meets this guy who is a photographer, works in an art gallery. I think it's art. There's some drama that goes on. Okay? Honestly, I don't feel like it was that memorable. So let's move on. 3 stars. Next book was ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. This one's all the rage. I feel like everyone's heard of it. I read this book with my husband Dallin because I was on a road trip and started reading it out loud just so he would have something to listen to. And he was obsessed and I was obsessed. So now we're reading the series together. This book was really good. It's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It does have some spicy content in it, but not that much. I loved it. 5 out of 5. Moving on to the third book, I listened on Audible to The Silent Patient. I had a migraine, and so Audible is coming in clutch because when I have migraines, I can't look at anything, I can't function. So I just lay down and turn on a little audiobook. The Silent Patient is a thriller mystery. It's about this woman in a psychiatric facility, and she doesn't talk. She's the silent patient. Throughout the book, her therapist is trying, to get her to talk and find out what happened because she was found at her house by the police and her husband's dead, and she has not talked since she's been caught by the police at the house, so they don't know what happened. That book was good. I will say towards the end I kind of saw the end coming, but I still think it was a good book, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Okay, book number 4 is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This is a reread for me, actually. I really love it. It's set up in a conversation between a man and the devil. But the devil in this book is essentially fear, kind of the negative aspects of our minds that hold us back. That's how I would describe it. But I love this book, hence rereading it. 5 stars. Okay, next up I read another self-help book. It's called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. This book goes through this title, 13 things that mentally strong people don't do, and they're all listed on the back. But this is so good for developing some mental strength, some resiliency, not being a victim, you know, that kind of a thing. And I would give this absolutely 5 stars out of 5. But some of the things on the back for the 13 things is don't waste time feeling sorry for yourself, don't give away your power, don't shy away from change. And then obviously she goes into depth on each point. And I haven't read them yet, but she also has 13 things mentally strong women don't do. And then she has one for parents too, which is pretty cool. So 5 out of 5, love that one. The next book I read, I don't have with me because I lent it to a friend, but it's called How to Be Online and Be Happy. It's a really aesthetic looking book. It's so cute. You could definitely use it as like a coffee table decoration or something. I didn't feel like it really hit my core all that much, but it did have some helpful tips about being online. So I'd give it maybe a 3 stars. If you are someone who finds yourself chronically online too much, it could be a good book for you to read, just to get some awareness, some tips about how to better manage your time online and on social media. Okay, next up we have Daisy Jones and the Six. This book is so good. So Daisy Jones and the Six also has a TV show. It's a fictional story, obviously, but it's inspired by Fleetwood Mac, I want to say. So it's in LA in the late 60s. Daisy Jones and the Six is essentially a band, and then it just goes through the whole band's journey from the beginning of getting together, why they split up in the end, which is not a spoiler, you know that from the beginning. And this is also done in an interview style, which I really liked. Highly recommend this one. 5 out of 5. I'd read the book and then watch the show. I also read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in end of 2021 maybe. It was like one of the first books, fictional books I read when I was, you know, getting into this. And I really loved that one too. So that's just a little honorable mention. The next book I read I also don't have because I lent it to another friend. It is Then She Was Gone. And it is a thriller. This book was very enticing, if that's the right word. I was like needing to find out what was happening. I was enthralled. But it was quite dark. So it was written well, but if you are a sensitive girl, I don't know if it'd be the best choice for you. I myself am a sensitive girl, and it was a little bit disturbing. But if you like true crime and weird stories and morbidity, then you might like that book, because it was written really well, and you will be intrigued. I struggled to know what to give this one. I think I originally gave it 5 stars because I was like so enthralled in it, but for the disturbing nature of it, maybe we'll bump it down. So maybe a 4 stars is what we're gonna go with. Okay, next up, I read Before We Were Strangers. This is a love story. I can't remember what the trope is called. Enlighten me if you know. But it's when they meet and then years go by and second chance romance. There we go. This is based in New York too, which is kind of fun, you know, fun setting. But I will say it was not very memorable to me. It's just kind of like, when I think of this book, it's like neutral vibe. Didn't hate anything, didn't really love anything. So we'll give this one 3 stars. Yeah. Okay, next up, One True Loves. So this book is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which was also Daisy Jones, also Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So I already knew that I liked her writing, and I just wanted to find another one that she had written, One True Loves. This book is about a woman that's married, in love with her husband. So he leaves on their like 1-year anniversary or something right before he like missed it. Because he's like a photographer, so he's like flying in this helicopter going somewhere. Never comes back. Okay, he doesn't come back. She moves on. Several years go by. She meets a new guy. She starts, you know, developing a romance. I think they get engaged. And then she gets a phone call from her missing, maybe dead husband. He's not dead. And now she has to choose between the new fiance and her husband. It was so good. I accidentally spoiled this for myself because I make the mistake sometimes of Googling different details that I need to know about the book. Like when I get confused on like what a character looks like or whatever, and I spoiled the ending. So don't Google anything. Stay off of the internet. But I'll say this one's a 5 out of 5 stars and was my favorite read of the whole year. I loved it. Even after spoiling it, I still loved it. Oh, and also they made a movie of this book. It flopped, in my mind. In my opinion, I mean. So, you could watch it, but it just didn't compare to the book, you know. Next up, I read another Colleen Hoover book. See, I told you guys, even though I do feel like her writing is, I don't know what word to use. I initially said like immature, but that sounded way too harsh, and so then I went with juvenile. So let me know what you guys think. But I obviously still like her enough that I read another book. So this one's Reminders of Him. I think it's one of her newer books. This is about a girl. She serves time in prison, and then she wants to get reconnected with her daughter, who she would have given birth to in prison. Without giving too much away, this is also on the back, she burnt bridges really badly. So these burnt bridges are proving difficult for her to get back into her daughter's life. But this is a romance story. She does meet a man in this story who has some level of connection to her daughter. This one did make me cry, which I do love books that make me cry, so we're gonna bump it up for that. I'll give this one maybe 4.5 stars. 4 to 4.5 stars, somewhere in there. I don't know if I explained that one very well, but I tried, okay? I need some practice summarizing books. Next up, I read The Perfect Marriage, which I saw this one on TikTok or YouTube or something, and I felt like it got fairly good reviews. It is a thriller mystery, and I hated it. I hated how it ended. That is so harsh. Okay. I really didn't like it, okay? It was a waste of time. So I would not recommend that one. I think I gave it a 1 star. And what I will say is I felt the ending was a cop-out. I feel guilty sometimes being harsh on books because I think about authors that literally put so much dedication and work into making these books. But also, people's tastes are different. So just because I hated it doesn't mean everyone's gonna hate it. I found it online, people loved it, so it's okay. It's just different tastes. You might have different opinions on these books than I do. And that's actually great. Okay? And it's fun to be reading more and to be getting more of an opinion because I did feel like in my first 6 months to a year of reading, I gave almost everything 5 stars. I just feel like I didn't have like a depth yet of my love for reading, if that makes sense. Okay, let's move on. Next up, we have another self-help book. This one is called The Mountain Is You. Loved this book. This book is all about the different ways we self-sabotage, why we do it, and then knowing the ways we do it, we're able to, kind of work on that and stay aware of it. So that's what the title means. You are the mountain. A lot of the times when it comes to our goals, things we want to achieve, it's ourselves that's like standing in the way the most. So climbing the mountain is like figuring out your own shit. Love this one. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Next up, I read One of Us is Lying. This is a young adult thriller mystery. It was just underwhelming, in my opinion. There's a TV show they made. I watched that. I wouldn't say it was bad. I just wasn't that into it, and it wasn't super memorable. It's like a whodunit. A group of kids in high school, and someone dies, and they're trying to figure out who did it. And I think they changed the TV show, so the TV show and the book have different endings. I'll give it a 2.5 stars. Next book I read was called Women Don't Owe You Pretty. I loved the title and I loved the look of the book. I judged a book by its cover and I bought it because I loved it. And then I ended up just skimming it. I didn't even fully read it. It just wasn't for me. I felt it was an aggressive amount of feminism. Don't get me wrong. Love feminism, like go girls. It was just aggressive. Sometimes I feel like with issues, things are like a pendulum swing. They're too far over here, and then they swing to try and correct that, and they swing too far over here. And if that makes any sense, I thought that this book was too far of a swing. No, but you might love it. So I'm gonna give that one, in my personal opinion, I'd give it like 2 stars maybe, because I still got some good out of it, and it was a beautiful looking book, and lots of beautiful artwork and photos and whatever. Okay, the next book I read was The Housemaid. I actually listened to this one on Audible. This is a thriller mystery, and it's about a woman who, for some reason, she's in a pickle and like needs to get a job. She might also have been to prison, I think, so she can't get a job super easy, and she ends up being a housemaid for this wealthy family. And I did not see the twist coming in this book, which is always good, and it was a good wild ride. So I'd recommend that one, and I'll give it a 4.5 stars just because it was good, but I'm not like ecstatic about it. But it was good enough that the next book I read was The Housemaid's Secret, which is the sequel. Kind of a similar story. more housemaid-dery stuff where she's trying to figure out what's really going on. And you get to, you know, see behind closed doors and all this stuff. But I don't want to say too much on the second one because I don't know if it would spoil the first one at all. I'll give it the same score, 4.5 stars. Okay. The next book I read, I do not have because I sold it on Pango Books. If you don't know what Pango Books is, it's an app where you can sell your books. It's pretty much like a Poshmark, but for books. So it's really nice. The next book is called The Fine Print. I wanted to read this book because I watched tons of YouTube videos and people were always recommending it. So I bought it and I made the poor decision of buying all 3 in the trilogy at the same time, which I do not recommend doing that because you don't even know if you're going to like the first book yet. And if you end up not liking the first book, you're not going to want to read the next 2, 3, whatever. So I did that. I bought all 3. I started reading the first, and this is a romance series. The thing I do like about it is it's an amusement park, based in like an amusement park most of the time. So it has like a Disneyland feel to it, and I love Disneyland. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to read it, and I do like romance. But anyway, I start reading this first book, and I had to DNF it. I got 80% through, and DNF'd it, which means I did not finish. Now, the reason I didn't finish it, and this might be a hot take, the smut was too aggressive for me. The smut was too much. I felt like there wasn't much of a storyline and it was mostly just smut. Which, if you are a super duper lover of smut, that might be the series for you. If you like smut in Disneyland, you should get that series and you should read it. I don't hate smut. I post about this on my TikTok. I just want like a little dose of it, and I want it to be well balanced with a solid, good storyline. I feel like the smut should be like a little sprinkle on top of the solid storyline, like an ACOTAR, not the whole storyline. I just find myself like cringing. I just want to push through the smut scenes, and there was too many to push through. I would have been pushing through the whole book, so I had to stop. I did push through obviously to 80%, but then I had to stop. So I'm gonna give that one, again, my personal rating would be, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. The 2 stars are for the Disney aspect. Okay, next up I read another thriller mystery. This one's by Riley Sager, my first book by him. The House Across the Lake. I loved this one. I feel like the scenery was really good. I could like really picture it. It's about a woman, I can't remember how she starts, but she ends up watching the house across the lake and sees this couple and like interesting things going on, and she's like trying to figure out what their dynamic is. So it's voyeurism, essentially. So it's a couple and the woman goes missing. Like she stops seeing her and her car's gone or something. So she has to figure out where this girl went because there was suspicious activity before that she thinks there may have been foul play and wants to know where this girl is. So I really loved this one. And it had some really good twists and turns that, again, I didn't see coming. So I gave this one a 5 stars. Okay, the next book I read was a biography. Bretman Rock, You're That Bitch. Lessons on Being Unapologetically Yourself. I really loved this one. So Bretman is huge on social media. I actually didn't follow him, but of course I'd like heard of him and seen him. And he always made such funny videos and stuff. But he grew up in the Philippines, and it obviously just goes through his whole story and how he became famous and his career and everything. And I loved it. I won't rate it. I've learned that rating biographies is like maybe not the most tasteful because you're like rating somebody's life. So I won't rate it. But I did love it. It was really good. Okay, next book is another self-help. It's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I actually learned about this book from the 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do book. So this is exactly how it sounds. The author worked in, I don't know if you'd call it hospice, palliative care. I hope I'm saying that right. And she gathered the 5 most common themes of the people she was caring for, their regrets at the end of their life. I just think, you know, we're all gonna get there. You want to live your life fully, and it's a lot of good insight. I try to not make the same mistakes or have those regrets at the end of your life. I really love this one. I'd give this one a 5 stars. If you like the self-help books and you like to go deep, this is one for you. Next up is another thriller mystery. This is The Guest List. This is also a whodunit, and it is a wedding party, and they have this wedding on an island, but the island's like off of Ireland, and the weather's not great, so it really has a spooky atmospheric vibe. I was on my toes the whole time. I didn't really know what was going to happen, but each chapter is from a different guest or person in the wedding party's point of view. You have the bride, the +1, the best man, the wedding planner, and the bridesmaid. All have a secret, all have a motive, but only one is a murderer. I think I'd give this one either 4.5 to 5 stars. Somewhere in there. But worth the read. Okay, next up, I was really in the mood for thrillers, and this one is my next book by Riley Sager, The Only One Left. This came out this year. This is inspired by Lizzie Borden. So there's a girl who lives in this mansion on the hill, and she is rumored to have murdered her whole family, and she also doesn't talk anymore. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. It wasn't me, Lenora said, but she's the only one not dead. So she had parents, and then she had one sister, and they all ended up dead, but she never got convicted because she wasn't saying anything. She stopped talking. And I would give this one 5 stars. This one was also very atmospheric. I feel like Riley Sager does a good job of like building the scenery so you can really picture it in your head, which for me can be hard sometimes. So he does a great job. Love this one. The next book I read is a classic, Harry Potter. So I've never read the Harry Potter books. I've seen all the movies. I love them. I feel like a Potterhead, and I thought it's about time I read the books. And I've heard that the books have way more detail than the movies do. They're just epic. Okay, so I read the first book. It did take me a while to get through this one. I just had other things going on, and I also feel like the first Harry Potter books are more kid oriented, and then they kind of get more mature, get more exciting as they go on. Just like how, you know, the kids were getting as they were growing up when these were coming out. I am gonna give this 5 out of 5 stars because how could you not? Harry Potter is iconic, and if you haven't read them, I highly suggest you do. I'm obsessed with Harry Potter, and I'm a Ravenclaw. Next, I read a spirituality self-help book called Signs. I'm one of those girls who loves to see angel numbers and that kind of thing. I can be inspired by a microwave, which I think is a strength. The author is a psychic medium, and she tells stories about people she's helped and how their loved ones on the other side send them specific signs. If you're skeptical, I don't know if you're going to be that into it, but I love this kind of stuff, and I cried multiple times in this book. It was very sweet. I just love the idea that, you know, we can have some sort of communication with the other side. So I'll give this one a 5 star. Okay, next up, I read the second Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Same thing. Harry Potter is iconic. You should read it. I read this one in a week. I actually deleted social media because I was spending too much time on it, and I ended up finishing this in 1 week because I wasn't spending any time on social media. It was really great. 5 out of 5. Finally, you're probably waiting for this one. I read the second book in the ACOTAR series. This is A Court of Mist and Fury. Again, I read this one with Dallin, and the funny thing is we started it at the beginning of the year and didn't finish it until the end of the year, which I've heard a lot of people that I have read this, I tell that to, and they're shocked because the books are so good, you want to keep reading them. But because I'm reading it with my husband, we have to wait until we're both mentally prepared to open a book and sit down and focus. But I did end up getting it on Audible as well so that I could physically read it and turn on Audible while he can hear it, so I didn't have to read it out loud anymore. And we read majority of these books on road trips, which has been really nice. This one's also very good, 5 out of 5 stars. So the first one's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I won't say much for this because I don't want to spoil anything, but the whole ACOTAR series is fantasy. There's like these things called fairies, but they're not like little tiny typical fairies. That's just like what the breed is called. A lot of people have said the second book in the series is their favorite. I will say the second one I did like a little bit more than the first one, but I've only read the first 2, so those are the only 2 I can compare. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Okay, next up, I read the third Harry Potter book, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. This is probably where the Harry Potter series gets really exciting, and that's what I've heard too. My older brother just finished the whole series this year as well, so we've been, you know, talking about it, and he said that this book is like where it really picked up, and then you can start reading them faster because it's exciting. 5 out of 5 stars. I love Harry Potter. The last but not least book I read of 2023, which is actually kind of funny, is called Finish. This is a self-help book, and I loved it so much. It is quite different than other self-help books I've read. So it's about how to get things done. So a lot of self-help, you know, is like the hardest step is getting started. This is about how to finish the things you start and is tailored towards perfectionists. So I've recently discovered, actually I've known I'm a perfectionist, but I recently learned more about perfectionism and how much it is controlling my life. I talked about it over my TikTok, but I was often feeling kind of lazy, procrastination, and those are all aspects of perfectionism. It's like you have this level of performance that you expect from yourself, no matter what it is, like health and fitness wise, work wise, creativity, all of it, even decorating for Christmas. This level of expectation you're holding for yourself, it makes you not want to even try because you already kind of know you're not going to reach that level of expectation, so you'd rather not be disappointed. You'd rather do nothing than be disappointed. So you give up on things, you don't go after your goals. So if any of that relates to you, out of all of these books, especially the self-help books, this is one that you need to read. It's very practical, applicable steps to getting things done, overcoming perfectionism. I would give this one 10 out of 5 stars. Can't recommend it enough. And I genuinely think this is a pivot point for me in my life and my career. So read it. Okay guys, that's all the books I read in 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you've read any of these books down below and what you thought of them. And I promise I'll get better at describing books. It's just a new skill that I need to learn. I would rather describe a book too vaguely than give something away that you didn't want to know or spoil a book. So, you know what? We'll take it. Oh, and my goal in 2023 is to read 50 books, which is like 4 to 5 books a month. And I can't wait, and we'll do this video again next year. Bye guys!